Warm greetings, everyone. On behalf of W4W Foundation, a think tank instituted as a citizens collective, we welcome you to another session of Wednesdays for Water. The conversation today is on Lake Pond series, session number 8, on Friends of Lakes. My name is Prashaka Maitra. I'm the moderator for the session. I'm joined by Dr Mansee Bal Bhargava to carry out the session discussion. Wednesdays for Water is a water conversation series towards understanding better the nuances of water conservation and management. The objective is to engage with water experts, grassroots practitioners, policymakers, and youth to learn their thoughts and ideas about the complex intertwined issues associated with water and the possible solutions. We have expanded to have more activities like the Friday Waters and the Monday Munching with Women for Water, besides organizing water workshops, water walk and talks, seminars, special courses, and conference panels to continue the water conversation in various possible ways. Please visit our website www.w4w.in for more details. Over to Mansee ma'am for introducing us with the series.
Yeah, thank you, Prashaka. Thanks a lot, and warm greetings to everyone from my end as well. As you know, some of you have been attending our series for quite some time because we have crossed 200 sessions, but at the same time, we are also inching towards nearly 10 sessions of Lake Pond series. The idea of Lake Pond series is to really focus on these special water bodies which are referred as eyes of the earth. Lake ponds are spatially distributed across every kilometers of the country's tropical landscape. And in fact, they are considered the most vital ecosystem to really provide us all life-saving facilities for our being, not only human beings, but other beings as well. They remain among the main sources of fresh water for all functions, especially for our consumption. There are actually cities, towns, villages that do not have rivers, wetlands, seafronts. However, there is no city, town, village in the country that does not have a dot which can be marked as lake or pond or lakes and ponds. These socially engineered high-valued ecosystems are crucial in both waterscape as well as land use developments. Ironically, when we talk about lakes and ponds, particularly in urban areas, we are really looking at a contestation between land and water. And this is where they are so vulnerable creatures now that these beautiful eyes are under this phase of deterioration, even up to the extent of extinction. Because we have been using them as garbage dump yards, landfill sites, which over the years become land parcel. And that's why this contestation between land and water is on. In less than 100 years, we have lost half the lakes in the world, including India. In India, within the half left, we have lost half the size of the water body. So basically, we are left with only less than 25% of lakes and ponds in the country. And this is in the process of urbanization. A lake lost is a land gained. And this is where the discussion needs to be really taken very seriously, whether it is done intentionally or modus operandi, as you can say, or it just happened over the years. We would like to learn about all these nuances, the diplomacy around it, the ecology around it, the engineering around it, the sociology around it, to really get to the depth of understanding why are we losing lakes in terms of quality as well as quantity. And for that, we had actually started this series with eminent water warriors and enthusiasts to understand their thoughts, ideas, and approach, and their actually engagement with the lakes restoration and pond restoration. So today we have Madhuri Subbarao for the Lake Pond series, and the session title is Friends of Lakes, which is her initiative also. And let me invite Prashaka to first briefly introduce Madhuri, and then we also invite Madhuri to take on the session presentation, and then I'll follow it up with question and answers with Madhuri. Prashaka.
Madhuri is an ISO leader or lead auditor in the environmental management system and an internal auditor for health and safety. She holds the role of sustainability and ESG reporter and serves as an environmental impact assessment assessor. Madhuri is a co-founder of Friends of Lakes, the world's largest unregistered voluntary lake network with a vision to map, tag, and rejuvenate lakes. She is a research scholar in conservation psychology and actively writes research papers on environmental topics. Madhuri is an environmental conservationist and a lobbyist with a focus on advocating for policies that promote a healthier planet. She works as a freelance consultant for various central state governments, municipal corporations, industries, MNCs, and institutions participating in 30 to 40 programs related to the environment, health, and hygiene. Madhuri received training from the Bangalore Political Action Committee in policymaking, governance, politics, and administration. She is an executive member of the Confederation of Residential Welfare Associations. Over to you, Madhuri.
Thank you. Thank you all. So welcome to the series. I am on field today, so I'll have to take this call from my four-wheeler. But I hope it is not going to cause a lot of inconvenience for you to understand more about Bengaluru lakes. So I'll begin by about Bengaluru lakes. I've in terms of my work from understanding behavioral perspectives to be able to transform minds for conservation of lakes. And then I'll conclude by telling you what is the progress we have achieved until now and how much more distance we have to go. So that's what my conversation will be about. So can we start the slides, please?
Yes. Is it visible to you,
So,
Madhuri?
yeah. Yes, yes, it is visible. So lake water, the freshest potable water. Water is a habit. Every drop of water matters. I've always believed that, in a city like Bengaluru, which has a lot of people, coming from different parts of the world and different parts of, the country itself, where water is abundant. Here in Bengaluru, we are really, really very scarce when it comes to water. So every drop really, truly matters to us a lot right now. So moving on. So what does water do to us then? How important is water to us? If each one of us, whether we are really residents of the city or not, really understand the value of this, become far more easier to conserve it. The need to, bring in utility based as a priority for a city like us, where, water is, so scarce, and we are trying our best to do our part and bring in, the same mindset into people. We want to solve lake issues, and we want to solve water issues that we are facing right now, because we understand that if we are not going to do it, sooner or later we are going to be the next Cape Town. And we know we're already getting a lot of reviews from ISRO is telling us day in and day out that Bengaluru is the groundwater is almost dry. We need to work on doing something to recharge our groundwater. So I think lakes are a very, very good source to recharge groundwater, and hence Friends of Lakes is in the picture. I just want to also bring in, somewhere in my conversation, bring in to you a scenario on what exactly is the scenario with international lakes. So here I want to, confirm to you that, lakes are, once they're linked and they connect to rivers, it is something that we can look forward for some perennial source of water for a city like Bengaluru, where we don't have uh, a river, very close to us. We have to go really far to get river water for ourselves. So the dependency on lakes is actually very huge. And there are a lot of man-made lakes as well by the kings, the forefathers of Bengaluru, Kempegowda, and a lot of other people who have thought. We have Vishwesvaraya, who was the engineer, from Bengaluru or nearby Bengaluru, who has built a lot of dams so that it can provide us with sufficient water. So basically, considering that lakes, interlinking of lakes can certainly help in bringing us lots of, potable water, we have to understand the urgency and the need to do so. Until such time, I think we are losing on a very, very good source of water. lakes is a state subject, and very little of lakes is mentioned in the policy itself. So, considering that every state leaders have to understand how much prominence is being given to lakes, and when we know that it is a very big asset for us, there must be more focus given on lakes, particularly in a city like Bengaluru, where we are drawing river water from more than 100 kilometers away from us. So, lakes are covered in the national and in the state policy, but very little is covered, particularly in the subject of lakes. So we here understand now that there is really no plan B for water management or plan B for lakes. You know, whatever the volume of water we have on earth will just stay and remain the same. There is not going to be any change in that. So considering this, we must be able to understand the urgency to conserve lakes and its biodiversity and thrive along with this ecosystem. Next slide, ma'am. So let me give you a brief introduction about what is Friends of Lakes. Friends of Lakes is a very informal, a voluntary and unregistered lake group. So when we started Friends of Lakes, we realized that many people needed support in terms of understanding who the lake belongs to, who do they need to go and approach, how do they need to go and approach, what are the documents they need to understand before they go to the respective authorities to take up a lake issue. So when so many people were approaching us, we decided that we need to be able to help them, give them the right guidance. So that's how Friends of Lakes was started, and it was any form of money transaction. So we're just purely voluntary-based organization. Friends of Lakes was started with a vision to save, protect, and conserve and regenerate lakes only. When we talk about regeneration of lakes, also we just mean regeneration in a very holistic sense, whether it is from the community participation, whether it is from the ecosystem that needs to be revived. A lot of things was considered when we started off Friends of Lakes. It is also happens to be the world's largest network. Why it is the world's largest network? Because we are an informal group and we just help communities to take ownership of their own lakes. That is why we have a lot of lake groups with us that participate in conserving the lakes in their own communities. It was started in the late 1980s, as well as it's moved across to a few other cities, mostly in the south and some across the country too. We have a lot of volunteers, community experts, researchers, bureaucrats, and media support also that we get to make sure that we take care from take care of lakes from all aspects, whether it is from understanding who the authority of the lake is, to bringing in the community, hand-holding the communities to be able to help them understand it from a perspective that it is theirs, it is their public asset. So from that perspective, communities. So in this lake, our perspective is what matters the most. From the ecological point of view, from the social point of view, from the moral point of view, we want to hand over a green and a clean earth for the next generation, and also understand that any lake must be self-sustained so that they don't need to depend on the government or on the community for any kind of revival. It should be able to self-fund itself. Then only we can understand that the participation from the community, from the government, is very holistic. Next slide, please. So story of Chelkeri. Chelkeri was a very, very raw and barren land and was filled with a lot of bushes. So from here, we actually cleaned up the lake, like made a pathway for people to start moving in and start clearing out. Today, as we see Chelkeri, we made a habba. In Kannada, habba means festival. So we made a lake festival, and we called a lot of different age group people. We had a lot of celebrations, a lot of competitions, fun activities, and we made it really, really thrive with a lot of greenery and other ecological, species. So this is the kind of celebration that we had, which was where we got more footfalls, the positive footfalls. All the communities living around it was like, we should have more such things more often, regularly. And they started to take such activities on a more regular basis as we started, the Habba. So the reason we did this was that we wanted more people to understand that a lake belongs to them. Let them start connecting up to the lake. All age group, children, adults, elderly, came into the lake. They bought their own cleaning equipments. They bought, their entire family used to make Sunday events, fun in cleaning and taking care of their own lakes. So next slide. Okay. So I'll just give you a brief about, Dodbom Sandra. Dodbom Sandra Kere, it is in the north of Bengaluru, where the lake was actually thriving with, good amount of biodiversity. Then it is a very, very old and historic lake too. We realized that the corporators, some local leaders were actually trying to fill in some sand and mud so that they can start encroaching on the lake. So they started so that they can start encroachment process, which is getting dumped, which is used as, parking space or some other activities. And Bengaluru lakes now, more than it being a lake, seems to have become a playground, because all the lakes are drying, or they lakes as good as 10 to not giving it the actual vibe of a lake, because the required biodiversity is missing. If you see the picture on the extreme right, the lower one, I have actually put up the pictures of ornamental plants where all the grass seems very ornamental. The flowers, the vegetation is very, very artificial, trying to tell the authorities that give us some trees, some fruit bearing trees, give the lake a vibe that of the ecology it deserves, and not something which is very man-made and human like. We don't want that. So that is a picture depicting the artificialness in the lakes as of today, which are all commercialized. People want to see good looking lakes, and not lakes that thrive with biodiversity. They just want it to be more eye pleasing more than anything else. So this education has to be brought in amongst the people to tell them what is the actual nature of a lake, and how to bring in that setting back to its manner. That is the purpose of us trying to reach out to the authorities, writing such messages to them, and giving formal representation. Next slide. Yeah, now I'm able to. So this is Narsipura, where a lake which, from Friends of Lakes, we have done a lot of work. We've done aquifer mapping around north of Bengaluru. We've done aquifer mapping and understanding exactly what is the kind of water we have, and in how many years are we going to diminish on the existing water sources. We've done some work with Padma Shri awardee Salu Marada Timmakka, where she's come and tried to make the lake more green. We've done tree inventories. She's numbered the trees, because trees just go missing from lakes, and we don't know exactly how this is possible. The local municipal authorities want to bring in ornamental plants and beautify the lake when it's losing its natural beauty. So this is some of the activities. We've also done Save the Bevu. Bevu here in Kannada means neem. So neem trees are very important in lakes because they have the quality to suck out all the contaminants. So in lakes, since we get a lot of sewage water, we want to use neem trees to do its work. So that's why we wanted to save the neem. So this is one of our activities. Next slide. I'll talk about this in the next slide as we have a lag in the images. But next slide is about a lake called Sankey Tank. Sankey Tank is one of the oldest lakes in Bengaluru, and Bengaluru is also called as the lake city. So we're supposed to actually have a lot of lakes, and that is our identity. But we never thought that our identity from what used to be a very green city, what used to be the lake city, has now turned so commercial that the lake has actually lost its identity, where you will see parks, playgrounds, and flag tag events. There is an image which is on the extreme left bottom, which is a flag tag event. It was India's first Red Bull flag tag event, where they would, fly with some kind of, artificial transportation systems which had diesel in them, and all sorts of, in all sorts of shapes and sizes. So the lake is filled with sewage water. I really didn't see the point in them trying to do this. But yeah, so we had to take this up in a manner where they understand that they cannot use lakes, such historic such activities. Also, if you see, it has a where Ganesha is actually immersed, and it is immersed in a way that it is not even fully in water. It is just let out. This Kalyani is just by the lake. Kalyani is where it's like a smaller water tank. That's about so. So during the Ganesha festival, this is the way, even during Durgashtami, by the way, this is the way this lake will look, where there is so many POP Ganeshas that are immersed into the Kalyani, which don't even melt into, melt into the soil. So that's one of the bigger issues. There's lots of deforestation happening in the lake itself. One significance I have to tell you about this lake, okay, which is the middle picture image of the entire images in this slide, time image of a pagoda just by the lake. This lake happens to be home to to a species of bats. Now you may wonder, endangered species. It is already, announced that it is an endangered species. Now, as you know, you cannot see when there is a lot of light. However, this where they coracle, where they take it for a ride in the lake, which is nothing but sewage water. They take it for a ride, and they put so much light that the bats actually go blind trying to, move around in the lake itself. And this particular lake houses lakhs of these bats which are endangered, and it has probably the world's largest number of this particular species of bat. So this is the significance of this lake, which the government agencies have not understood at all. So next slide. So since I've tried to give you a basic idea on exactly what is the lakes of Bengaluru, and how we want to conserve it, and what are our efforts for its conservation. So I'm personally a person who is working on conservation psychology. Conservation psychology is nothing but to understand the relationship between environment and humans and our activities. So I have already tried to share some problems that our lakes are facing, but I'll just run through very quickly. Wastewater is already let, raw sewage effluents are being rampantly dumped into lakes. Across, we have few rivers that are very far off from us, but still somehow this wastewater manages to go and reach these rivers. Solid waste, garbage and debris is also dumped very rampantly into these lakes. There is one agency called Bangalore Development Authority, which actually constructs the lake. After that, it hands it over to what is called as the Municipal Corporation of Bengaluru Mahanagara Palike. So once it is handed over, there is really no maintenance in a lake that is being done by BBMP, which is the municipal corporation. We have a lot of STPs, but a lot of STPs within no time go defunct, and we hardly now have about 10 STPs that are functional. So with the population of Bengaluru being so high, maintaining these STPs are also very important, which nobody is now taking responsibility of. We have a lot of encroachment of land, water, and skies. You may be surprised how the skies above a lake are also getting encroached. Now these lakes have been given for lease for 30 years, 50 years, and now these lakes are actually the owners of this lease are building sky restaurants. So even above the lake, they are forgetting that they are in a lake premises. They have built posh restaurants in the sky on an elevated area, and they want a view of the lake, which consists of nothing but sewage water. Now I'm really wondering how people can, how we are going to ever make them imagine what is the content of this lake. Forget about the water quality or forget about the ambience, the air quality. Bengaluru has very poor air quality, and in that, with lake water being so polluted, you can even imagine how bad the air quality must be. So also another point which I like to highlight is they're all becoming very, very commercial, these lakes, in the sense government is giving themselves are encroaching a lot of land, and they're giving it making it available for a lot of religious purposes. They're building sports complexes within the lake. There are parking lots built within the lake. Government, though, they are rampantly constructing their own buildings within lakes and using lakes as their own buildings and for government official purposes. So there is really no demarcation of what a lake is and how to safeguard it. What is the use of this lake for us human beings? So there's really no clear demarcation. Even the government is unaware probably, and they are just doing a lot of activities, being, I don't know, ignorant of such assets. A lot of illegal and unsafe activities are also rampant in our lakes. Nobody is really taking ownership of our lakes, because if a community knows that this lake which is around them can give them so many benefits, I think they should acknowledge it, and soon they will be able to take better ownership of it. People have lost connectedness with nature. I think this generation more so, because of the fact that at least during our times we used to make more efforts to conserve a lake, and we used to go out to kind of do activities so that the next generation can take on and take on the activities and sustain the activities so that the lakes are conserved. But again, people are losing connectedness. Bengaluru is a very fast-paced city, and people are, every weekend they only want to enjoy the ambience of Bengaluru, but they are not doing much to conserve lakes. We have a lot of corporates, and these corporates are also doing some CSR activities only because they need to use their CSR funds. So there's very little being done on lake conservation. There is really no legal pressure from the government so that people are monitoring how much water they are consuming. And by doing that, actually, a lot of apartment complexes are going to be able to allow the right sources of water to get into lakes. Next slide. There's actually no penalty also being imposed on these activities, because lakes are somehow good places for good groundwater. A lot of illegal borewells are put across all the lakes, and they're extracting a lot of water and selling them. Including government agencies are doing this. The ecology of lakes are not at all considered significant. For various reasons, I think people have, stopped thinking that these places are their places. It is meant for them. We have what is called as a CA plot, which is a community asset, or it is basically to tell people that it is an open land. It is meant to give you the oxygen it is to give you, which are also getting used to do, to sell off to many other building or owners who will bring up a hospital or a school or so many other things, but not let it to be in the green space it is supposed to be. There is really no scientific approach to lakes. Now, whether it is government or the contractors, the statutory bodies are also not really doing lake management from a very scientific approach. They don't have data at all. How many lakes are there? What lake has to be categorized as what? There is really very little data available, even with government sources, on what is the quality of water, how much water is there, what kind of water is there inside the lake, what is the ecology around the lake, what is the ambience around the lake. So many things there is no data about. This is not at all a priority even for the state government, which is a very, very sad thing. Lakes are not considered significant even in policies, whether it is state or national policy. No environmental cost of the damage that is being created. For some reasons, any environmental damage that is being done, there is no cost to it. There is no penalty for it. People just take it for granted. Now, in earlier days, we used to make it a Sunday event to clean the lakes. Now, even cleaning is not considered important, even as part of CSR programs. In Bengaluru, there used to be a time less than 10 years ago where a lot of volunteers used to meet to clean lakes. Now, the current generation believes that it is the job of the government because they pay taxes to allow them to do the cleaning. So even that activity has come down actually. So there is no strength and support given to the communities living around the lakes. So that is what is lacking, because if they do get the strength, then what will eventually happen is that they will start to raise a voice to tell the government that this is mine, this is my asset, it is my responsibility, it is for me that you have made this. So these kind of voices need to be coming out and bringing about more communities together to conserve lakes. Humans have always wanted to be the most dominant species, and this is what our lakes are showing to us. We want to kill all the species in the lakes and we think that only we want to enjoy the lakes. I don't know with what we are going to enjoy, but as long as we are going to bring down the trees in the lake, bring down the quality of the water of the lake, I think all that is just not possible. Next slide. So I will just quickly tell you about conservation psychology again. So I try to understand conservation psychology from the attitude of people and the mindset, how to transform their behavior for lake conservation. So I will actually not get into too much into this slide because I'm running out on time, but I want to just tell you that lakes, rivers have what is called as a water memory. If we play around with that, then I think it will be total destruction of humans and their settlements. So it is very important that we conserve that memory and allow that to thrive. We need to build the relationship between rivers and lakes. Lakes are made by rainwater. Lakes are made by stormwater drains filling up, filling the lake, and they actually overflow from the network and they join the rivers. The rivers overflow and they join the sea. That is the actual relationship which we must remember and allow to thrive. And we must not cut off the linkage between lakes and rivers. Otherwise, soon we will go dry. We are actually not even considering climate change as significant. The risks that are coming along with that are water scarcity issues. All these problems are what we are ignoring currently. There is a lot of research already done. We are not considering this research as important, and we're trying to do new research. I don't understand why, but there is a law. We Indians, we have a significance with water. Lakes are very, very important for us. It has its own historical value. we would like it if we can go back and dig out that history and survive that. Now, if we think that we are a city of lakes, which we have big and small lakes, we must ensure that we safeguard them. This is where our identity is survived. Otherwise, Bengaluru has lost its identity. Next slide. So, as I was just telling you, my main aspect or my core aspect of work is in the area of behavioral transformation. I would like to understand why people are not understanding the significance of lakes. What is it that I can do to help them come and embrace lakes as their asset and conserve it? Next slide. So how can we contribute to lake? First of all, we from Bengaluru, I will just give you a small perspective. Lakes, we need to understand who is the owner of the lake. Firstly, actually speaking, we are the owners, but there are other bodies also who own the lake, who manage the lakes, which are BDA, BBMP, Forest Department, DMRCL, and so many other people. There are other statutory bodies also like KTCDA, who is the actual regulatory body for lakes in Karnataka. We have pollution control board, we have the revenue department, we have minor irrigation department. NGT is also there to take care of the legal aspects of lakes. We have the local water bodies, we have the groundwater network, also the Lokayukta. We have so many, MOAF is there. So many other departments are involved when it comes to managing a lake. But if we are able to understand who does what, then half of the problem is solved. So here in Friends of Lakes, our main job is to educate the community on what is their problem, to identify the problem and help them find solutions from various other angles. So that their lakes don't get commercialized and they don't get misused for many wrong purposes. So here we want to make sure that the community understands that the lake belongs to them and help them embrace that. Next slide. So Kerehaba is something that we've been doing for a very long time. It is nothing but a lake festival. We've done this in many lakes. And like I just mentioned to you, the purpose of doing this is so that we encourage good and positive footfalls into the lake. Here we are forgetting the main aspect, which is called as reduce. In any conservation activity, reduce is almost forgotten. What we are actually doing is to, the engineering aspects are coming in where they're trying to say that let's find solutions, new technology, and so many other things. But until we do not reduce our consumption, there is no absolute sustainable solution to any environmental problem. The core aspect here is to reduce our needs. There is something called as nature deficit disorder that is already setting in the mindset of people. Because we are not exposing ourselves to nature, we are suffering a lot of mental health diseases. And that's one of the biggest factors that will soon come into the picture. We all will suffer from this if we do not bring enough nature into our lives. We need a major lifestyle change to come into existence, because we are noticing that people are living more artificial lives. Their needs have become so much more than what earth can offer to us. Why wait till disaster strikes? We should take action now. And that is what we are, feeling challenged about. Running lakes is becoming so much of a big issue currently. We want to educate more people from the right perspective and make them volunteers to take care of their own lakes. We need more data. We are asking the government to collect data. If the government is not collecting data, we have our own network. We can start collection of data, but at least we need permission. Even for that, we are running around. Lake needs to be incentivized. We need to be able to bring in motivation for people to work for towards lakes. We know that the policy is not very supportive of lake management. However, we are lobbying so that the government understands the language of the nature and corresponds towards it. See, a country like ours where the population is so high, and in a city like Bengaluru, we don't even our assets are not made or not meant for such a big population. Still, the population is very high. So we're trying to understand how we can work around this system and do whatever conservation activities that we can for a more sustainable for sustainable water management. Next slide. Thank you so much. So I'll end by saying, let's leave a greener and more cleaner and safe earth for the next generation.
Thank you so much, Madhuri. Thanks for enlightening. And I think an important point which you raised is, of course, conservation psychology. And from there, you also talked about the nature deficit disorder. And many of the epidemics which we face today in the world can be closely linked to the disorder which we are, right from anxiety to all kinds of physical and mental disorder which we can relate with. But first of all, thanks a lot. And also let me just briefly lay out the interesting discussions or questions which you actually posed in your session. An important part is that the lack of plan B from the local authorities and the local communities, and we are almost dependent, or every other person in the country is dependent, that lakes and rivers means it is the job of the government. And that is an important question to be really knowing that it is our duty, not their duty alone. And you did raise the question of self-sustenance, and this is where it has been exploited actually. And most of the lake development has taken the commercial route instead of the ecological route. An important aspect which you raised is the lost identity of lake, where lakes are seen as gardens and grounds. And I think this is something where I have also broken my head for last 30 years now. And extremely important that we need to really understand that a lake is a lake. It is not a ground or a garden. So let us appreciate its being lake. Also the cultural and religious aspects of it, which you raised in it. And I think another important aspect which touched me very deeply, and I keep fighting for it, is the issue of other beings in the lake, like birds and fishes. And you made a reference to bats, because the moment we start decorating a lake like a bride, thinking it as a garden with light, sound, and all kinds of surface treatment, we completely forget that it is for other beings. And we are actually creating it for our recreation. So we need to also, so these points are very much conservation psychology points. So we need to understand that lake is not a place to recreate ourselves only. It is a place for rejuvenation, and that is the nature connect. So I think an important point which you raised, which is the million word question for all of us: are people unaware about it? Do the community know about it? And I have my own reservations working on it for 30 years on lakes as a researcher. And I feel that we pretend to not know about it. And that's my take. I may be wrong. And that makes us very complacent, and we can safeguard ourselves from this sense of association and belongingness. Of course, that is also topped up with the idea that we are urbanized people. I don't belong here, so I don't feel for the place, for the people. I am Bengali living in Gujarat, where Gujarati people don't talk to me, so I don't feel for them. Of course, then I don't feel for the lake. I'm just giving an example. Now, given this situation, when we don't know that it is our duty to protect the lake, when we don't know what is good for the lake, even the most learned people go ahead and do the concretization, do the lighting, do the loud sound program. It is an important question, probably a big challenge for conservation psychologists like you to really talk about to people that how are they going to change their behavior when they know what is right and still continue to do what is wrong. How on earth we are going to change? Yes, behind that there are these issues of ownership and all. Whose baby is that? Because we conveniently hide ourselves in the ownership discussion when we talk about ownership in terms of official ownership, and we don't really see ownership in terms of constitutional ownership, because constitution says that I am the owner of the lake. Every citizen is the owner of the lake, but legally and with the land document, it says XYZ or some organization. These are very pertinent questions. I am full with questions, honestly speaking, because this is my favorite series and it is my series within the Wednesdays for Water. I want to understand more from a conservation psychologist's point of view, given a situation where citizens like me who are aware and who still pretend to be unaware, and I will consider all the knowledgeable people in my category. What is your experience of changing behavior of the educated people? I'm not even talking about those who did not go to the college and university, because I think they are the least polluters also. The most educated people are the bigger polluters, and that includes architects, designers, government officials, bureaucrats, politicians, because they are the ones who are destroying the ecology of the lake. How do you go and ask Mansee to change her behavior? Over to you, Madhuri. And then I open up because I have many questions, but I'll open the floor to everyone to ask you questions because this is very interesting. So mind you, we are not even talking about lake. We are talking about people, because I also strongly believe water management is people management. And in every platform, I am also saying, if lake could speak to us, it would say, do not manage me, just go home and don't damage me. So if that is a situation, how will you change my behavior, Madhuri? I'm just curious and even concerned.
Okay, so I'll just start by telling you one example which is very, very universal. I say this because we've done some studies about all of this, and you will also agree with me. I'll start by giving you an example of water. Now, I think I've already quoted this to you in the past, but I'll still again quote it to you so that it kind of stays on your mind. And it is a very, very relevant example that I'm giving to you because it is so general in nature. So if a person uses, even quarter liter of water to wash his hands and he feels clean, okay, another person can use 2.5 liters of water and still not feel clean. So cleanliness is a perspective, right? Similarly, if you talk about garbage also, if you want to segregate waste, it's only takes you 3 minutes, 3 seconds of a thought to understand what will happen if you don't segregate the waste. So we have tried to understand the cognitive behavior of humans, particularly Indians, who are unaware of many aspects. These are very, very intricate aspects, and their brain is tuned to think this way from all the learning that they've had in all these years. So we want to break this and we want to help them unlearn. We give you a lot of facts that you can clean your car and make it really clean, even with limited water or bucket water rather than using a hose to clean your car. It is just a mindset, the cleanliness. In the name of cleanliness, we try to use more resources than we actually can afford to or we have. So this is conservation psychology, where we understand the behavior of people and we try to educate the community. Now, if the government is going to do a million programs on Swachh Bharat or on river rejuvenation or lake rejuvenation or just name any program, they do a million programs also, it is not going to be beneficial till they reach to the last stakeholder of the activity. So if the communities are the last stakeholders for as users of that conservation or regeneration, we need to be able to educate them how to sustain this. And that's when we will give them such examples, tell them exactly this is what they do. Government is propagating, don't leave the tap open and brush your teeth. Okay, that's what they're saying. Now, a human being, even a child, they will automatically do just that. They will leave the tap open and brush their teeth. They all want to have shower bath. When Bengaluru has no water, they want to have shower bath. They want to have swimming pools. That too in schools. Now, the problem is we need to be able to bring in more awareness using facts and data. Tell them exactly this is how much they are consuming. Can they afford to consume, and bring in the behavioral aspects? And
So
then only it
interesting.
will sustain.
Yeah. So interesting point. When we go to do this, I'm sure you are also doing this for decades, and like me, uh, often I am faced with a question like, what will happen if I change? And others are doing something wrong, and people try to safeguard themselves that they are not doing wrong. This is a very, very natural human tendency, and this is basically in economics the prisoner's dilemma. And the biggest question which I always face when I talk about water pollution is that, oh, government is not clearing. I don't get things cleared on my street and near the pond near my house. And nobody says that I am producing more waste. Likewise, if someone is actually cleaning and producing lesser waste, they will go on top of their voice and say, look, I am doing everything right, but others are not changing. Do you also face this kind of behavior from citizens when you are going for behavioral change programs and all? And how do we really then tell them that every drop or every effort counts? So we don't have to look for others to change while we are changing ourselves. What is your experience on this?
We also face this blame game. All communities or blame the government blames the public or the other bureaucrats. Everybody in the system blame each other. Builders also blame communities. All this game is continuous. But then once we bring in a sense of ownership, tell them you can keep blaming whoever you want to blame, but this is yours. And why would the government do anything till you don't want it to happen? If you want it to happen and push the government, they will do it because it is your need. You have to push for it. So until we do not bring a sense of connectedness, exactly this is the word. We have lost connectedness with all these assets. So until we do not understand that aspect and make it, very integral into us, trying to push any, activism or any policy change, any implementation aspects is going to be very, very short term. And there is burnout soon. It is not a sustainable process.
I think very important point, and I'm going to go deep into the nature deficit disorder, because while I teach water epidemics, I'm getting more and more interested to this because many of the water epidemics are related to it, more both more mental and physical. But let me just open the floor to have questions from people. So Shobit, maybe you may like to unmute yourself and ask your question, please. And others are also requested to please put up their questions in the chat box or comments if you have any, or maybe unmute after Shobit and ask. Shobit.
नमस्ते मैम, मैं उत्तराखंड से बोल रहा हूँ। मैम हम देखते हैं कि हमारी सिटीज में जो सीवेज वाटर है वो लेक्स में डाल के हमारी लेक को और हमारे वाटर सिस्टम को, उसके इकोसिस्टम को पॉल्यूट किया जा रहा है। लेकिन इसका एक जो दूसरा दुरुपयोग कर रहे हैं वो कि हमारे जो एग्री फील्ड्स हैं उसमें किसानों को उसको एज अ माइक्रो न्यूट्रिएंट का रिसोर्स कह के उसको वहां सप्लाई किया जाता है। तो ऐसे में हमारे वाटर सिस्टम पॉल्यूट हो रहा है, सॉइल सिस्टम, हमारा हेल्थ सिस्टम सब कुछ पॉल्यूट हो रहा है। तो ऐसे में व्हाट्स योर टेक ऑन इट? थैंक यू मैम।
सो वी एक्चुअली हम लोग हमारे जो फार्मर्स होते हैं उनके पास भी जाते हैं और बोलते हैं कि ऐसा पानी आप लोग अपना खेतों में मत छोड़ो, क्योंकि वी शुड नॉट अलाउ सच पोल्यूटेड वाटर इनटू आवर फूड chain because it's going to come back to us. Or we take a lot we do a lot of activism, lobbying, we do a lot of conservation activities also, because it needs to be a mix of everything. Only then we can see a change in the system. So we educate our farmers. We try to tell them that if such water is coming into your farmland or is being let into lakes where your farm is adjoining that, bring it to the notice of the pollution control board. See, we have a lot of strength. We have to just use it for the right reasons. Bring it up to the notice of the pollution control board, have them come and collect samples, publish it, bring it to the notice of the media, to the government. I'm sure there'll be lots of activism, that will show its, results. I hope I have answered your question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Maybe I request others. I see a lot of young participants are here today. You may like to ask question related to your neighborhood lake or your city lake or something, some query which you have.
Because I've done this in one of the lakes, Mansee. I myself, because of some activism and some amount of connections that I've reached out to, I have actually saved about 8 crores It is published information that I'm saying to you. About 8 crores of public tax amount I have saved in conservation of Dot Bomsandra Lake, which I have put up pictures in this very presentation. And the public are very, very, very happy even till today that because of this activism that was seen, that today the lake is free of encroachments.
Nice. Nice. I think bottom line stays that how much we feel associated or engaged, or the sense of belongingness to the place and sense of association with the nature, and how much time we are willing to take out from our so-called busy life, the pretension of being busy, and even actually reduce our nature deficit disorder, our own nature deficit disorder, and be with nature. I think it's about taking out time from our own professional life and personal life and take it up as part of our own life rather than categorizing it as that ye lake ke liye kaam karenge or ye nahi karenge. We have to feel for it when we walk by it every day. And I think then and then only we are going to stop by. Aisha, I see you have unmuted yourself. Would you like to ask a question? Yeah, go ahead. Aisha? Do you have a question or anyone else who would like to ask a question? Otherwise, I continue with one last question to Madhuri. Okay, I don't see Aisha speaking from her unmuted situation. And Aisha, would you like to ask your question? Yeah, go ahead. No. Okay, so let me ask you a question raised based on your presentation itself. When you were talking about the sense of ownership, and I already raised this point that one part is the legal ownership, which is based on the land revenue map, but another part is the constitutional ownership, which makes all of us the owner of the land, which the word used in constitution is the custodians of the land. So when you go to people around these lakes, which I'm assuming are more peri-urban lakes and not really mainland or core area of Bangalore lakes, was what I read from your lakes, how much people feel for the lake as their lake, or they are always talking about or cribbing about that someone is not coming and taking care of the lake and not even feel that we should do something about our lake. What is your experience of the many lakes which you have touched upon? If you can give me in a broad percentage that these many people feel in last 10 years, 20 years of your experience, that they feel it as their lake or they feel it as their lake, What is your experience? I have a very striking experience on this, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, so one of the lakes that I spoke about, Sankey Tank, it's named after, Sankey himself. It's a lake which was there from the Britishers' times, and it is in the core of the city. So it's a very, very city lake. So considering that, I mean, people around the lake, it's one of the most poshest areas of Bengaluru, Sadashiv Nagar, where the lake thrives. And it's got a walkers association, it's got a joggers association parallelly, apart from other associations that are like, parallel to these associations also run very actively. Now, the thing that happened in this lake with this flood tag event, we went to the extent where we had to go file police complaints against the authorities who gave permission to do such activities. We went and we've done a lot of activism along with educational programs for the people itself around the lake, telling them that this is your lake. Now imagine your water, your fish is dying. And the fishes die very frequently because it also has a swimming pool adjoining the lake itself. So we go around doing a lot of educational programs around the lake dwellers, telling them that this is the quality of water. We call pollution control board regularly, every quarterly. They're supposed to actually collect water samples and publish the information on what is the water quality. But other than that also, if there are any instances where there are fish death or any other such activities which are suspicious, that we are suspicious about, we make sure that the concerned authorities come immediately, absolutely immediately address the issue and bring it to a close. So of course we are trying parallelly from one side, whether it is an urban lake, peri-urban lake, or lakes that come under the Gram Panchayat also. Gram Panchayat lakes have its own challenges, which are like very different from the the lakes under the municipal corporation. So each lake that we are working with have different problems and different solutions also. So we try to reach out to the communities. First and foremost, we reach out to the communities around the lake, because they will be the, actually sometimes it's the other way around also. The communities reach out to us, tell us that Madhuri, there is a problem with this lake, can you please tell the authorities to take action. So when that happens, then we know immediately they'll send us the photographs. It's all very quick these days. We send it to the respective authorities. They will come and work on it. But otherwise, if we are to go to the lake and find a solution, we are open to that also. Even in that case, we will involve the local authorities to take action on that particular lake.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Madhuri. Thanks a lot for this enlightening session. For me, two key takeaways is that we have to really think that lakes are not only for human beings. Definitely, they are not garden and ground, and they are not for recreation alone. There are other beings who require to thrive and survive on the lakes. And an important takeaway, second takeaway for me, is understanding this connect with the nature and the impact we are facing on nature deficit disorder. So we really thank you for this enlightening session, and also taking out time for us. And definitely thanks to all the participants here and the YouTube watchers who are making our conversations more meaningful by really encouraging us and supporting us in our water endeavors. You may please look at our activities at www.w4w.in. And with this, I would like to thank again Madhuri and hand it over to Prashaka to do the formal vote of thanks and also announce the forthcoming sessions. Over to you, Prashaka.
Thank you, Mansee, for taking the session discussion, and thanks a lot, Madhuri, for the enlightening session. We will continue with Wednesday sessions in the Wednesdays to come. Next week, the Wednesdays for Water session is on 13 December 23 at 5 p.m. IST. Do join us for the discussion on water coverage in media, alias media coverage for water. Please register at the link that will be provided in the chat box. For more info, log into www.w4w.in. Please circulate, and thanks. This Friday, join us for a discussion on seasonal changes in cell size of the dominant diatom species in the waters of Lake Biwa in Japan at 5 p.m. IST. And we shall continue doing the Monday Munching with Women for Water. We are also gearing up for a water fest to celebrate 250 water conversations. More info on it are coming soon. Do keep checking our social media accounts and websites, www.w4w.in for regular updates. Thanks to all. Do take care of yourself. Bye.